Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, publisher of the beloved Aspire magazine and host of this transformational show where I have conversations with extraordinary visionaries who are changing the world and women's lives with their sacred wisdom, their offerings, and their message. And today, I got to tell you, we are talking with Jo Rathgeb on a topic that I know is going to resonate with so many of you, because when I first met Mary Jo, and we've had personal conversations, then I had her in my summit. It's the conversation about befriending your money shadows. And the conversations I've had with her were really eye-opening for me on a personal level. And as our conversations deepened, I'm like, so many women, we need to hear this conversation. And yes, sometimes that can be uncomfortable, but I believe that there's wisdom in the wounds, wisdom in our stories, and that's why I wanted Mary Jo here with us today. So if you have ever struggled with calling in abundance, with keeping abundance, there could be some shadow emotions actually getting in the way. Because the secret to abundance and prosperity isn't about how you handle your money. It's about how you handle your emotions about money. And as my guest and good friend Mary Jo shares, money often generates fear and other shadow emotions, such as worry, guilt, shame, anxiety, and more. But once you learn how to befriend these uncomfortable emotions, your relationship to money changes for the better, and so do your choices about it. So let's dive in. I want to introduce you to my special guest. As a life transitions coach, professional certified coach, certified RIM facilitator, and iPEC Energy Leadership Master Practitioner, and human design consultant, Mary Jo Rathgeb intuitively and compassionately supports women to shine a light on their shadow emotions so they can reclaim the energy and wisdom contained within. This sacred work frees women to be who they really are and not someone that they think they're supposed to be, and empowers them to live a life that aligns with their deepest truth. Mary Jo, I am so happy that you're here to join me today.
Thank you, Linda. I am so honored to be invited to be a part of your show. It sounds
Well,
wonderful.
I got to tell you, Mary Jo, this is such a deep topic. You know, we've had some great conversations personally. You've written for Aspire magazine. You spoke on my summit,
Mhm.
and like there's such a depth to this. And so again, we're talking about befriending your money shadows. But why don't we start with that word money is so emotionally charged. Why do you think that is?
Yeah. Money. Yes, that's how I started my article. Oh, money. It's yes, everyone has such an emotional charge to it. I should say most everyone. Maybe there are some people who don't. But we're talking to the people who do today, right, Linda?
Mm.
It's really tied to, um, I mean, I can get really, really geeky on you if you want. But I mean, it's tied to your deepest, and most longstanding, earliest, um, relationships, with the primary caregivers that you had who, you developed a sense of either security and safety from or not, or some combination. And so, because money is so important in today's world for a sense of safety, security, you need it for food, you need it for housing, you need it for clothes, you need it for all the things that are going to help you be successful in life. And so it's really tied to the very beginnings of your own internal working model of who you are in the world and who others are, and are they going to be able to help you get your needs met, and that includes money. So that is um that's why we're so emotionally attached to it.
So when we are feeling emotionally charged, and you know what? I know I have many times in my life and sometimes
Mhm.
can still be,
Yeah.
does that mean that charge is a shadow emotion, like in the background?
That charge is a shadow emotion in the background until you understand it.
Right.
So if you don't understand why you're getting emotionally charged around money, then yes, it's a shadow because it's in your, outside of your awareness. But once you're able to shine a light on it and focus on it, then it becomes something that's workable or work with.
Yeah, that's insightful because like everything in life, right? What we avoid, I think, only gets bigger.
Right.
So you had talked about our childhood, and
Mhm.
that's where a lot of our unconscious patterns begin. Can you
Mhm.
give us some examples? Because some of us might go, but I had a great childhood. And I think,
Mhm.
like so many others, I had a complicated childhood, but like I was like low to mid class, middle class. But
Mhm.
I can remember now that I've done this work, for 30 years, internal work. I
Mhm.
can look back now and go, look at all the scripts I picked up. And then
Mhm.
I became a welfare mom and picked up more scripts.
Mhm.
And I can remember some of them. So take us back to like some of the stuff that could have happened, or the things we heard in childhood that planted the seed of that belief.
Well, yeah. So basically, we are meaning making creatures. Humans are, right?
Mm.
And and so it's it's a combination of beliefs that you may have picked up from your family, your caregivers, your society, and it's also beliefs you picked up about yourself and about other people and how responsive and available and trustworthy they are, and also how worthy you are of receiving from them, and whether or not your needs are going to be met. And so, some of the beliefs that you may have picked up from other people, could be anything from, money doesn't grow on trees to waste not, want not, for instance. But you could have also picked up the belief that my needs aren't as important as other people's, and therefore other people deserve more than I do. Or you may have picked up the belief that, other people are um, not, they're not trustworthy. And so I can't depend on them. And when you think about those beliefs and you insert money for people, what happens?
Yeah. It just creates this depth of a wound, I think, right? And they unconsciously navigating life with it.
Well, you could call it a wound, and you could also call it a strategy for managing, and getting your needs met. And so it becomes a pattern that you use in order to manage life, manage your stress, manage your emotions. Some are adaptive and some aren't. And what may have worked when you were 5 years old doesn't work when you're 35 or 50, you know? And so if you are still engaged in these strategies for managing, getting your needs met or not, and managing the stress and the emotions around all that, then that's when they become shadow emotions and behaviors.
I like that word strategy better than wound. It just seems more
Yeah.
empowering. It's
Yes.
it's like it was an energy shift the moment you said it for me. So I really am glad that you clarified that, because it just
Mm.
it is what we found worked for us at that time to help us navigate it. You
Right.
know what I find funny is we can have there could be 4 children in the same household.
Mhm.
They live the same life, but all have different money stories.
Mhm.
So is it because we're also all wired emotionally different? So something that could affect one person doesn't as a child?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, everyone, this is all based on your own perceptions. And, when you are an infant, you are the center of your universe, right?
Yes.
And you're just learning that there are other people around you. And the first people that you're learning from are your primary caregivers. You could be learning from your siblings, you could be learning from other family members, but the primary one is the first one is that initial primary caregiver. And and so that they may actually respond differently to different children in the family too.
That's true. I think we can all those with a lot of siblings, we can all relate to that a
Mhm.
comment. So
Yeah, and also, I'm not, gonna get into all sorts of things, but it's like, the birth order, like, what are the circumstances in the family, when one child is an infant versus when, the next few come along. And, so what's going on in the family there? Are you in the same situation? Are you living in a different state? Have you upwardly moved up in the world? It's like, what are the resources? And so there's all sorts of different reasons why people, even if siblings growing up in the same family have different experiences, even in the same event.
yeah, and I hear that time and time again in my work with women. So glad that we're covering that. And I thought it was really important that we start with where they come from to give women an understanding that it's like we've picked it up over time, as well
Mhm.
as choices that we make. So we're going to take our first break. We come back in a moment. We will continue this conversation. Stay with us, my friends.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Inspiration for a Woman's Soul. Aspire Magazine, inspiring and supporting women on the path of self-discovery. Claim your free digital subscription today, which includes access to thousands of dollars of personal development bonus gifts from Team Inspiration partners. Claim your Aspire Magazine subscription today at subscribetoaspire.com.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Consistently attract soulmate clients, begin showing up on brand, monetizing on your calling. Welcome all spiritual coaches, leaders, healers, light workers, and practitioners to a show that turns you on in your business and amplifies your magnetism. I'm host, catalyst, and spiritual business coach Rosalind Fung, and I'm here to journey with you into the juicy and help you discover where the real gaps are. Ignite your mindset and soul with strategies and systems as each episode takes you to the sweet spot that activates your soulgasmic business by tuning in on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Mountain. Join me for your light language activation and let's magnetize and monetize.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. With me today is life transitions coach Mary Jo Rathgeb, and we're talking about befriending your money shadows. So we talked about where we can pick them up from,
Mhm.
and then how do we know? Because one of the things that was really big for me, and I know it was some of the childhood stuff, but then I became a welfare mom around 21 or 22, and
Mhm.
there was a lot of shame and energy around that. So I know that for me, that shame and guilt really fed my money stories for probably another 10 years,
Mm,
20
mhm.
to 30. Now, of course, I'm saying that now because hindsight's 2020.
Right.
I didn't know that that's were the shadow beliefs that were causing me to keep co-creating these sabotaging patterns. So how do we know if we're carrying guilt or shame on the topic of money?
Well, how did you know? Let me turn that around on you, like
Ooh, good one. Well, I think it was I really started to go, okay, Lynn, you're the only common denominator in your own life.
mhm.
Money, everyone thought I was a master manifester even back then, but I couldn't keep it, Mary Jo. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So everything would come to me. And then as I didn't think I was going to heal my money story. I was actually working on my own internal healing from childhood stuff.
Mhm.
Realized that, oh my goodness, I see in that healing period, I found that I was not allowing myself to receive it because I didn't think I was worthy.
Mhm. Right.
And so even though I wasn't working on my money story in therapy, I was working on healing worth. And then I realized, oh my God, no wonder I can manifest and not hold on to it. Because I
Right.
would push the money away or the abundance away or the opportunity away because it was like, who am I to receive this? Is
Yeah.
that a big one that you see?
Yeah. I mean, that's huge. And the guilt and the shame, that's attached to that is the, it could be multifaceted. And tell me if this resonates, where it's like, you know that you're this supposed to be this manifester, this great manifester, you're able to call in the money, and yet you're not able to hang on to it,
Mm.
which
Yeah,
then
that was my
creates
pattern
that
in my.
sense of shame, like, oh my, like, what is wrong with me?
Yeah, I was judging myself because it would come and then it would be gone, and then
Mhm.
I'd be back in the same financial straits that I was, and I kept going, "Why does this keep happening?" So, of
Yeah.
course, what did I do? I internalized thinking something's wrong with me,
Right.
and I actually, for many years, believe it or not, and now I will use the phrase so people understand my life before, but
Mhm.
I used the label and actually embodied the label, looking back in my early 20s, so we're going back almost 40 years,
Mhm.
financial misfit. I
Mm.
used to I'm just a financial misfit. It's like I took on that persona
Hmm. Yeah.
almost as a, like, "Oh, that's just me."
Right.
Do people
Right.
take on those kind of energetic labels?
Yes. Yeah. And so the strategies that you adapt can become what feels like personality traits.
Yeah, that speaks to what I was feeling at that time, like,
Mhm.
because my sister was always financially responsible for even from a young age, and she's 2
Mhm.
years younger than me, and I'd be like, "What the heck?" You know what I mean?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and I see now looking back, I took on that persona, that strategy,
Mhm.
almost as, I think it was trying to give myself an out to be re if I look back, like,
Mhm.
"Okay, you've tried to change, it's not working, just accept that this is who you are." And
Mhm.
then in my, I think, energy field, I didn't have to keep trying because I took on the label of, "This is just who I am."
Right. Right. And so that's where, the whole idea of guilt and shame, the definitions, the quick definition of guilt is, I did something wrong or bad and I feel bad about it. Shame is I am bad or wrong.
Mm. Then if given that definition, I'd say in my 20s and 30s, it was shame.
Mhm. Yeah.
I just as you described it, that's what just dropped in. So it
Mhm.
was the energy of shame, like,
Mhm.
why can't I get this right? Why there was so many layers of it.
Right.
Do you see that guilt? and or shame are two of the deepest core beliefs, or are there others that the majority struggle with?
Well, I would say that guilt and shame are the heaviest of the, core beliefs. So if you are carrying either guilt or shame, those will be the heaviest. Does that make sense?
Oh, resonate, yeah, resonates for me. There's
Yeah.
an energetic weight.
Yes. Yeah. And that when you can, relieve yourself of that energetic weight, then it is much easier to, to really be able to just be who you are in reality, in truth, as opposed to taking on that persona, that story of I am a misfit financially.
Yeah, that was a big one. I didn't release that. I'm just going to be 62. I probably released that around 40 years old. And
Mm.
don't I did the work off and on
Mhm.
for 20 years, but it was like layer upon layer would come up, and I'm like,
Right.
damn, I thought I had this already.
Yeah.
And now we know we're always unfolding, right? The next layer of healing,
Yeah.
always being revealed. So if guilt and shame are the heaviest,
Mhm.
what are some of the others?
Well, I would say undeservability,
Ooh,
unworthiness. If you have the unworthy or undeservable, it's like I don't deserve it, and so it's like you push it away or avoid it. You may also put others' needs ahead of yourself. So it's like, oh, I'm not as important. So someone else needs this more than I do, or they need they need my help, for free, let's say, or for low cost if you're, trying to build a business and having trouble charging money, for your fees, let's say. It's more like, oh, I'm doing this for the other person.
ooh, you just hit one for me because Aspire's 18 years old as of the day we're taping the show.
Mhm.
And she was print for the first 3 years. And it was a service project for me. It was something that I was given in a vision and I delivered it, but I was at that point of healing the wound still. Remember, I said I was about
Yes.
40,
Yeah.
and women would want to advertise. As I said, we were regional, local, more brick and mortar places. And I'd
Mhm.
be like, oh, you can't afford it. That's okay. Well, damn, I had to pay the print bill.
Right.
And I was doing that. I got to tell you, Mary Jo, constantly. And I see now there was that wound. That's when I really did I don't want to say the final, because I don't think we're ever really there, but the deepest work is if I am committed to Aspire, which I
Mhm.
was,
Mhm.
if I don't heal this wound, Aspire cannot survive.
Right.
Can't I can't keep giving the space away
Mhm.
because of something inside me,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And I had to heal it. And because I was so committed to the vision and mission of Aspire, um, I really had to face all that because, we like to kind of hide it and bury it like, oh, I'll look at that next week.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, oh yeah, I was really good at that. But
Yeah.
Aspire meant so much to me. I knew it was my soul's purpose that I go, Lynn, you got to do this. And
Mm.
18 years later, thriving and truly blessed. But if I didn't do that work, and because I serve so many entrepreneurs, all women in the spiritual and personal development field,
Mhm.
Mary Jo, I can say I see that all the time.
Yes.
I either see that the abundance doesn't come in, or they have so much fear about being seen
Mhm.
that they keep themselves from attracting abundance. So is that another cycle, not just for entrepreneurs, is like not showing up fully in your own life?
Yeah, I mean, that's really about, your own expectation of, or belief in yourself, like, am I someone who, can handle this? Can I be responsible with money? Can I take, do I want that responsibility? Or would I actually rather depend on other people? I mean, there's that as well. As far as, can I stand in my power, own my gifts and my talents, and ask and receive the money that is commensurate with it?
Mm. Really resonates from conversations I've had with clients, but also my own journey. And I'm pretty transparent. I mean, everyone knows. I tell people, listen, I've had it all, lost it all, rebuilt it all, and almost lost it all again.
Mhm.
And I know, and that's over, since probably 1992 when I first became an entrepreneur.
Right.
Um, and I can look back at those times when I was in the valley, like,
Mhm.
what the heck? Those are the times that another layer was coming up for me to heal. So do you find that, like, just from our conversations, I feel like when we open to doing the shadow emotions work, we
Mhm.
can actually save ourselves so much time.
Mhm.
Like, if I even knew this type of work existed, I might not have had as many valleys with my money story because I didn't understand that I had unconscious beliefs in the background.
Mhm.
Have you found that to be true too? Like
Uh,
when we work with our money, shadow emotions, that I don't want to say it accelerates the healing, but it releases the weight we're carrying.
well, I mean, I think that it certainly it it does both. I think it does both. And the journey that everyone is on is obviously different. And when you talk about the peaks and valleys, if you will, one of the keys to really having what's called a secure attachment, let's call it, to money or anything else, is actually being able to um, have it leave and come back, rupture and repair. So it's not necessarily about everything being perfect all the time, but it's about being able to understand that there's a natural ebb and flow, and that things, that money can go out, it can come in, it can go out, it can come in, and that it's not going to turn into a crisis.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yes, I can feel that one. I want everyone to sit with that for a moment. We're going to take another break, and we'll come back. We're going to talk about that ebb and flow. And well, that was just a powerful insight because I think we get afraid, and I'll speak for my truth, when there's an ebb.
Hmm.
So we're going to be right back, my friends. I promise you. We're going to be talking about the ebb and flow and the energies behind it because I just got an insight from my own journey. So thank you, Mary Jo.
You're welcome.
And we'll be back in a moment.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Inner peace, joy, and fulfillment are yours, even if they feel out of reach. When you learn to befriend your shadow emotions instead of avoiding or stuffing them, you free yourself of self-sabotaging patterns, beliefs, and habits that keep you from living your most authentic life. As a life transitions coach, professional certified coach, certified RIM Facilitator, iPEC Energy Leadership Master Practitioner, and Human Design Consultant, Mary Jo Rathgeb intuitively and compassionately supports women to shine a light on their shadow emotions so they can reclaim the energy and wisdom contained within. This sacred work frees women to be who they really are and not someone they think they are supposed to be, and empowers them to live a life that aligns with their deepest truth. Learn more at maryjorathgeb.com.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Free your mind with Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. Today we're talking all about our shadow emotions, money shadows, why it's important to befriend them. And maybe, Joe, right before that break, you said something about the ebb and flow and knowing that, like, that's the cycle. What I felt in my body was when I was in those valleys that I talked about earlier, I think I was afraid to be in the valleys, which we'll call the ebb, right?
Yeah.
Because I hadn't come to the point of trust in understanding that it's energy, which is an ebb and flow. So I was out of trust that I
Yes.
was supported.
Yes.
And so when as you were sharing that moment, I immediately saw the me before, who was in the valley and was petrified, right? And the person I am now, which completely energetically knows that it's ebb and flow. And when I'm in the ebb, there's such a trust of, oh, Lynn, you've been here so many times before, you know what's coming. Like the ocean, right?
Yes.
So I think, and I'll just speak for myself from law of attraction, when we're in the ebb and go into fear and lose our trust, then it's harder for the flow to come back in because there's an energetic wall.
Right. Like built
that
in
kind of
dam.
Yeah, that was really powerful. I just saw my before and after, and in that valley, I was not in trust. So you help your clients understand that it's all natural to be in ebb and flow when it comes to abundance. Is that
Right.
correct?
Right. But it's also important to be in honest relationship with the ebb and flow. And what I mean by that is, by actually facing the situation, facing the fears, facing whatever those shadows are, and really getting real with it. And so what I mean by that is, like, if you are in an ebb and you are in fear because you don't trust that money will ever come back, right? It left you, it abandoned you, it's never coming back. You need to face that and look at it and really get real with how true is that? Is that true? And what about this situation, is in your control and what is not? And taking responsibility for what you can do about it.
Oh, I love that. So basically, you're saying use it as the learning experience to uncover the muck, right? That brought us there in the first place. Is that an accurate description?
Yes, and well, I like to call it the reality check, which
Yeah.
is, it's like getting real, with yourself and what is happening, and also knowing that the ebb and the flow are a natural process and cycle. Everything cycles. We all, we know that, right? And so, but also really knowing that it's not about I lost everything and therefore I am a failure somehow and I need to, rebuild. It's more about, I lost everything and I have the capacity and the resilience to rebuild.
Yeah. I love that reframe of failure because when I lost everything way back over 30 years ago, I carried that weight of guilt and shame, right?
Mhm.
And then when I started I've had multiple businesses. When I started another business, it was a mobile spa body company. I was so passionate about it. I loved it. My daughter was an esthetician. We would go into people's homes, turn it into a Zen experience. And
Mm.
I I loved it. I was passionate about it, and I was afraid all the time that I was going to make the same mistake as before.
Mm. Mhm.
Right? So it was like this, I don't know, give, take, freeze. It was
Mm.
like I wasn't in ebb and flow because I was always that natural rhythm. I could feel that I was constricted all of the time.
Mhm. Yeah.
Isn't it funny, like this conversation, it's helping me identify some of the things that you're teaching us. And it's been so insightful for me, as I know it is for the listeners.
Mhm.
I had to face that in order to heal, in order to keep this beautiful business I have now going for 18 years in the more natural rhythm of ebb and flow, and stop constricting myself as I
Yeah.
did for many years. But that was one of my strategies that I must have picked up
Mhm.
many years ago, is like that freeze. Don't make any decisions because you might make the wrong one.
Mhm. Yeah.
But the flip
Yeah.
side is every decision can be reversed. That's the truth. So the truth is I wasn't a failure. I learned from it. But isn't it funny the stories we take along that can weigh us down?
Yeah. And the stories that you tell yourself about yourself, can be the things that weigh you down the most, right? And so when you're or not being willing to look at what the stories are even, and not being aware of what the stories are. Because if you're just living, with those stories running the show, you're not going to be able to change them.
Yeah. You know what I noticed too? Isn't it funny? So when I had those labels, when I owned those labels, right?
Mhm.
Financial misfit,
Mhm.
welfare mom, I was owning them as a label. So of course I had the guilt and shame in my energy field that went with them, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then I believe we all have this tendency. It's like, well, I don't want people to know that part of my life. Then,
Mhm.
so then that's shadow stuff.
Mhm. It's more shame.
Yeah. And then I'll never forget, going, God, it was before Dana, so before 30 years ago, I got off welfare. I got a great job. I went through a state job training program and got the first corporate job that I applied for. Well, that became in Massachusetts a success story for the department. And
Mm.
I started getting asked to do motivational speaking. And I'm like, what are you people crazy? And one of the talks I did was in front of a group of women who had been on welfare, and some had really struggled with a bunch of other stuff. And in that moment of me sharing, I remember something healed, because I said, you know what? If I can share my story and one woman in that room can believe in her possibility and in herself,
Mm.
and I shared it, and something healed in me that day. I go, I am so done. I am not those things that happened. I am not those choices I made.
Right.
That began my job. That began my healing of, I am not hiding any aspect of who I am. They are not who I am. They are just experiences I had.
Right.
Was that the shift that you're talking about? Is
Absolutely.
Yeah, that began my healing journey, and now here I am all these years later, and my whole brand is about authenticity and storytelling. And I know that when we change our story, we change our lives. And
Mhm.
so internally, I didn't do anything, like I didn't consciously go, I'm gonna release the guilt and shame, but I kind of changed the story. So is that what you help clients do, and all the work you do as a RIM facilitator, energy leadership master practitioner, the list goes on?
Well, yeah, I mean, particularly, like when we're talking about RIM, we do both. So, and it happens organically. And so it's, inside all of us, we have what in RIM we call the emotional operating system, which is a organic healing system for people. And so with the use of the imagination, your own imagination, you're able to use that as a translator between your logical brain and your emotional body. And what it does is you're able to release damned emotions, stuck emotions, that have been with you for however long they've been there, and they organically will regenerate a new emotional feeling, a new positive emotional feeling, and a new story around the situation. And so, even though nothing has changed, the facts are the facts, the emotional memory is now different. And because of that, you have a new story about yourself.
That is powerful. And I know from our conversations, those RIM sessions and that work are powerful.
Mhm.
And I want to take a moment now because I want to invite everyone while we're in the middle of this conversation to go to maryjorathgeb.com. But you have a free gift called 5 Reasons to Befriend Your Shadow Emotions. So,
Mhm.
ladies, I want to make sure I got that in because I want you to get that e-guide. One, it's going to give you some more information about everything we're talking about today.
Mhm.
But more than that, you'll be in Mary Jo's community. You will learn about her services in conversations like this, content like this, and of course, her supportive services. And when you get the Befriend Your Shadow Emotions guide, you'll also, this is like a bonus in the back end, have an opportunity to have a call in session with Mary Jo. So Mary Jo, if they want to learn about your RIM sessions,
Mhm.
they can also find that or reach out to you during that complimentary call.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think just the reason I wanted to bring that up, ladies, is if you keep struggling with something over and over again and you know or you feel you've done your best to get through it yourself, open your arms to receive help and support. That's how I changed my life.
Mm.
And this RIM facilitator, as a RIM facilitator, that's what Mary Jo does. And she has so many other gifts that she brings to the table. But why keep struggling with the same patterns over and over?
Mhm.
Um, it was really important for me to say that because I did that for so long. I tried to do things myself, and now I open to support of others. And I just noticed the time. We're gonna take a quick break and we're gonna come back for the last segment, my friends. And we're gonna talk more about some of the ways we can befriend our money fears and start that conversation. We'll be back in a moment, my friends.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Times Radio. IOM FM.
Are you feeling the call to unleash your feminine wisdom, hone your empathic gifts, and rise as the goddess you are? You're not alone, my beautiful friend. Crystal Cockerham, spiritual mentor and certified red tent facilitator, trained in both shamanic and priestess practices, works with awakened, empathic women around the world to unlock their shackles of pain, shame, and self-condemnation so they can reclaim their sovereignty and liberate themselves from the world's perceptions. As the founder of Wisdom Awakens and an international best-selling author, Crystal uses her own intuitive blend of spiritual midwifery and energy healing to support women on their journey of transformation. You'll find supportive guidance and community in Crystal's programs, retreats, and sacred offerings. If you're feeling the call to embrace your feminine power, learn more about Crystal's supportive services at crystalcockerham.com.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
This is Kathy Beal, host of Celestial Compass, featuring astrology you can use. Celestial Compass points you to what's going on in the sky and what you can do with it down here on Earth. We also explore fun, effective, and cosmic tools for navigating this adventure we call life. Join me the first and third Monday of the month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Celestial Compass. It's enlightening, entertaining, and empowering.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. You are listening to Inspired Conversations. With me is Mary Jo Rathgeb. And Mary Jo, why don't we talk about just a couple of the ways that we can begin to befriend our money fears or any other shadow emotions surrounding money?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I started talking about it in an earlier segment, which I am now calling the reality check.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so, it really starts by, taking an honest assessment of, what the situation is really and naming that for yourself. And then once you're able to name it, you're able to give it its own, separate identity, if you will, right? It kind of creates a space between it's no longer me, it's this situation. And then face it and really just kind of lean into, okay, what is this fear? What is this fear about? And spend time actually listening to what the fear actually has to say. It's adopting a attitude of this fear is here to protect me. It wants me to survive and it wants me to be safe. And so if those two things are true, then what is it trying to do?
Hmm.
I'm gonna
So it's
pause
almost,
there for a reaction.
yeah, and it's almost like it's like you're having a conversation with it in a way. You're listening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Because if you avoid the fear, if you run away from it, if you fight it, if you try to kill it off, um, then it's basically you are not going to be able to receive the protective intentions. And so if you adopt the stance that it's not my enemy, it's actually trying to help me, then you can look at it from a attitude of like, okay, I know you're trying to help me. What is going on? And what are you trying to protect me from? Or, like let's get under the cover here and figure out what is going on. And once you're able to do that, then you're able to say, okay, um, now I understand what this part is trying to do for me. And usually the fearful parts are again, younger aspects of yourself that, had a strategy. And usually that strategy would work for them when you were very little, but they aren't so much anymore. And, just like you wouldn't want to avoid or, get rid of a 5-year-old child who's scared, you wouldn't want to do that with your fear either.
Oh, I love that. Especially when you said you wouldn't do that to a 5-year-old child. Well, within us is that 5-year-old wounded child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that 5-year-old is scared and it's trying its best to protect you. And so it's just a matter of, you know, being able to, embrace that child and be like, it's okay. you know, I'm older now, I'm wiser, I'm more resourced, I'm more resilient, and we don't have to do this like that way anymore. In fact, we're not going to. But that doesn't mean that you can't come for the ride. You are a welcome and respected part that's going to come for the ride with me, but you're not driving.
Yeah, that's the visual. It's like,
Right.
okay, time to get in the back seat. I'm taking the wheel.
Exactly.
of my own life.
Right.
Oh, it's so powerful because one of the things too is we've always heard that, you can try to smother something you're afraid of, But when you avoid it, what happens? It gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Just turn to face it. There was a meme about 5 years ago. It was a beautiful visual. And I'm like, that's it, right? What we shine a light on gets smaller. So
Mm-hmm.
friending the shadow emotions is like you said, a reality check, talking, coming in to find out what it really has to say. And we have a few minutes left. I want to talk about something you shared in when you wrote for Aspire magazine,
Mm-hmm.
or it may have been in the Elevate Summit that you spoke in. And it was about that underneath everything that we're holding down are also our gifts and wisdom, because when we're smothering something that we're trying to avoid, the good stuff gets down there too. Can you talk about that quickly?
Yes. Yes. So when you are pushing some aspect of yourself out, right? Um, it gets put in the closet, let's call it, just for, the visual. But what ends up happening is that there are qualities that get put in the closet, let's say with the fear, and, or the grief or the sadness or the anger. Let's use anger as an example. When you suppress or repress your anger, for instance, what gets swept in the closet is not only that uncomfortable rage kind of energy, but also the ability to say no and have boundaries and be passionate. And so there are so many qualities that are positive, that are bound up in these uncomfortable emotions, that when you don't face them and befriend them, you lose those qualities or access to those qualities as well.
That was a big insight for me when I read that article. I was like, ooh, think about it. So there's gifts and wisdom when we take the time to befriend our money shadows.
Mm-hmm.
So I have loved this entire conversation. I don't know, I find it all so fascinating, how the human psyche is.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like these kind of conversations, I get all excited. So I want to invite everyone to please visit maryjorathgeb.com. It's all in the show notes. Be sure to download your free gift called 5 Reasons to Befriend Your Shadow Emotions. When you receive that, you will see an invitation. And if you are ready to befriend your shadow emotions and get that type of support, Mary Jo's your gal. All those details will be in the e-guide. Stay connected with her. Stay in the community. You don't have to do this alone. You are worthy of receiving. You are worthy of healing. So Mary Jo, thank you for the work you're doing in the world and for this insightful conversation.
Thank you, Linda. It was my pleasure. And I also just want to say that, really we're wired to do this with other people. So doing it alone actually isn't going to work.
Take it from someone who tried, ladies. Take it from someone who tried. So thank you, my friend. And until next time, ladies, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness. Blessings.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.